Hey everybody, welcome to the Creativity Cave and Friday Quickie Techniques and Tips. This is one of my favorite series and I haven't had a chance to do it a lot lately because it's been really crazy around here. But this week I have a great video for you with some great tips and tricks for the Stamparatus. So the Stamparatus has come out for some of you who are able to pre-order it during the November and December pre-order periods. If you have not pre-ordered yours and don't have yours yet, don't worry. You'll be able to order it in just a couple of months. Starting June 1st, it will be in our annual catalog, and I'm so excited about it. I love this stamping tool, and it is so wonderful and helpful, but I've got a few tips to help make your experience with it go a little bit more smoothly. So first of all, there's a great instruction sheet with some tips and techniques in here. Please read through the information because it really is helpful, and there are some great nuggets of information. The first and most important of which is, if you have both plates in the hinges, do not close them at the same time or the hinges will break. So I have both plates right now, but one is not attached, one is. So you can't actually close the plates. So that's, I suppose if you forced it hard enough, you'd break it and be able to close it. But when one is down, the other one won't close all the way. So of course you don't want to force it because that will break it. So what I do is take it off and then just set it right on top, and that works great. Okay, the other really important tip is with the magnets. I found the best way to save your magnets from breaking is to simply use one at a time. They are stored underneath the Stamparatus here and here, and they will not fall off. Don't worry, because they are stuck on there pretty good. I have put washi tape on mine. I've seen other people use like duct tape or masking tape, and that is whatever you want is fine. That will hold them together. But these are very strong magnets, and if they smack together, they will crumble. They'll break. They're very brittle, and that is one of the characteristics of strong magnets, is they're quite brittle. Stampin' Up! Will not replace those because they'd probably have to replace everybody's if people weren't aware of this. So I do believe that they will be an item you can purchase coming up, but for now you cannot get replacements on them, so be very careful with yours. Again, I find the best way to do this is to use one at a time. If you're a demonstrator and you're going to be using the Stamparatus in a class, absolutely hide the other magnet. Don't have it out because your customers are going to break it. Okay, what I would do also with the Stamparatus is just play with it. Just take some stamps out and get a feel for how it works. All right, I do have some, we're going to make a card today. Actually, this is the card, and I kind of have to say I love it. And I'm going to show you a bunch of different things that you can do with the Stamparatus that is really awesome, and also some things that you don't do with the Stamparatus. So there are many more techniques that are certainly available out there, but I'm just kind of covering the basics today, just so you know. I also will have a blog hop that I'm participating in that Stampin' Up! Asked me to be in at the end of this month. So watch for that, because we're going to be doing more advanced techniques in that blog hop, and there's going to be 20 demonstrators participating, so you're going to get a ton of inspiration. Okay, so one of the things that also comes with your Stamparatus is this foam mat. This is for use with photopolymer stamps. The regular base is for use with red rubber stamps. So you know we have clear mount and we have photopolymer stamps, which are like clear stamps. So I'm just grabbing a red rubber set. That is not rubber. But this is, oh, here we go. So, oh, look at, this is a virgin stamp set. Don't tell anybody. Actually, I'm not going to use this. I want a set that I've used. Here we go. My gosh, I found one. This is a well-loved set. Okay, so on the red rubber, you can see, because it has foam mounted to it, that's kind of what this foam is all about. It takes up that gap, all right? So you just position your stamp on there and then you can use it. Now I just picked up my stamp, and when I look at this, I can see clearly that it is not lined up. So what I can do is pick it up and reposition it in the same vicinity, but I'm going to use the grid lines to help me get it lined up straight. Does that make sense? So the grid lines that are embedded in the plates are really wonderful for lining things up. And then you can see I just place it back in here and then I can stamp with it. I will tell you, for best results, do not place your images right up against the hinges like this, okay? You are going to find that it's not going to stamp as well, and I'll give you an example. And it was not designed for this. So be aware of that. Sorry, I'm just looking for a scrap piece of paper. I have about a zillion of them, but yet I can't find one at this very moment. Okay, so I'm going to put this in here. And here's a couple little things. So I'll ink this up and stamp it down. And what you'll notice is, do you see right there, it didn't stamp particularly well. If you take and add the foam mat, that can help with this, especially if you're using a red rubber. Now, I suspect that, yeah, it alters, because I've lifted this up, it alters where my cardstock is, so it's not going to line up as well. Let's try it once more. This time, I put this piece in, and you can see it stamps better. All right. However, I would argue if you take and position your cardstock, say down here, and stamp, you're going to get perfect results every time away from that top hinge. Okay. Now here's another suggestion. If you want, you can, I'm going to turn this over once more. If you want to use your cardstock near this top hinge, or actually let's, I'm changing my mind here. Say I wanted to use it along this side and there's hinges right here. What I could use is this top plate instead. Okay. So for example, if I pick up my stamp, I have it positioned right here, and I'm going to get another scrap of paper. All right, so we know that it's not going to stamp well when we take out that piece, right? Okay, you can see that's not good. But what if I switched it and instead I used this side? I'm going to position it in the same place right here, but I picked it up with this plate instead. I get perfect stamping every time. Okay, so that's just a hint about the hinges. You don't want to stamp too closely to the hinges. The next thing I want to do is show you how I put together this card, because it's really pretty and it's really easy. And I use the Stamparatus in a lot of different ways to make this card come together. Okay, so first things first, I have my pieces for my stamp set, or for my card. I'm going to use a half a sheet of cardstock for my card. Okay, so I'm just going to push my card into the corner. Now you can see I'm stamping my stuff in this section, so I'm not too close to the edges, which is great. I'm using photopolymer, so I'm going to bring in my foam little mat. Okay, and I'm going to position my card in here like so. I also would like to have one of my magnets holding my cardstock in place. So I want to make sure that my foam mats kind of flush up into that corner as well as my cardstock. All right, I've put a magnet down, so I'm good to go. Now I want to position my largest stamp here to ensure that I have enough room for everything to fit that I want to stamp. And there we go, we look good. So I'll go ahead and pick that stamp up. All right, now this stamp is going to be inked in a darker color, so that is fine. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm using Flirty Flamingo of course, that's what color you would use for a flamingo. And then my lighter color is Pink Pirouette. Wow, that was really hard. Okay, so you can see we've stamped our flamingo. And you know what? I don't think I got ink on the whole thing. That's what happens. All right. Next, I'm going to take and position the next stamp on here, which is the solid flamingo. All right. So I'm going to line this up. And here is a stick your butt out situation, because you want to make sure you've got the very edge of that stamp lined up perfectly. I think I have it. You saw that my head was in the way, but I've got the beak portion lined up. I've got the bottom of the edge and the tail feathers all lined up perfectly. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my second plate, and I'm going to pick up my stamp, and then I'm going to use my Pink Pirouette ink. We'll ink that up and stamp it down. Boom. So pretty. Okay. The next thing that I want to do is I want to stamp the detail of my little, what do you call this thing? Flamingo. So I'm going to take this plate and I'm going to flip it around so that the stamp I was using is now facing outward. Okay, so this is on the wrong side. I can't stamp with this. All right. Now, the other thing to note is it will not touch your work surface. You know, if you have paper under here, you won't ink it up. It'll be fine because it'll sit at an angle and not touch. It doesn't lay flat, which is kind of cool. Okay, so again, I'm going to line up my stamp image. Pardon my head. I'm looking at the beak and the tail feathers. Looks good. I also want to add one more image, and that is the water. I'm going to stamp this water down here at the bottom in Pool Party ink, and I'm just going to adhere this piece and this piece all at the same time. Okay, so I've picked those pieces up. I did move my cardstock, but I can just reposition it back where it was. Now I'm going to ink in two colors this time. And this is kind of the beauty of the Stamparatus. So I'll ink the top one up with my Flirty Flamingo ink, and then I'll ink the bottom image up with my Pool Party. And then, boom, we're going to touch all of this, and voila, we're all set. Okay? Just wait, there's more. I want the beak of my flamingo to really stand out. So I'm going to take my black marker and I'm going to color that beak and the eyeball. Okay, so here, I'll move this over here so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to color the beak in as well as the eyeball with my marker. Okay, we'll position that in here, and I'm a purist, so I'm going to huff on it. That re-moistens everything. And I stamp it down, and now look, my beak is black. Yay! I'm so excited about that. Okay, so there we go. That is all of the Stamparatusing we're going to do on the outside of the card. I do want to do one more thing though. I want to stamp on the inside of the card, and you can see I have Tickled Pink for You in the inside. Now to do that, what I'm actually going to do is flip my card upside down. Okay, and then I'm going to put my magnet at the bottom, which is actually the top. Then I'm going to likewise turn my plate around just so I have a clear side to my plate. And I'm going to position my sentiment, which is Tickled Pink for You. Okay, now I'm positioning it upside down because remember, my card is upside down. And I'm just going to pick it up. And I'm going to look and ensure that it looks straight on my grid lines, which it looks pretty good. So I'll ink this up in Flirty Flamingo. And I'm going to stamp that down like so. Okay, perfect. Next, I'm going to take that marker and like before, I'm going to color the little line and the words for and you. Okay. With my black marker. And you guessed it, we're going to stamp right over the top again. Now, one of my favorite things about using the Stamparatus is being able to do stuff like this. But the other thing is when you stamp a partial, it's really wonderful. So I'm going to pull that out for a second and put a scrap piece of paper down. Have you ever done this where you've stamped your sentiment and, sorry, I'm just looking for a scrap quick here. That will work for this. Oh, for heaven's sakes, I have a gazillion scraps, but wouldn't you know? Okay, so I'll just set my marker, my magnet in there. So have you ever stamped something where you didn't get the full image the way you wanted? Okay, so I'm going to actually clean this off. You can use lots of stuff to clean this off. I'm using an absorber, which is found at the automotive section of Walmart. And I'm going to ink this up in my Flirty Flamingo, and then I'm going to stamp it again. And you can see I lined it right back up. Now it already had some black ink on there, so it's kind of like it's shaded, I guess. But my favorite thing is when you get incomplete stamping, you can re-stamp with your Stamparatus and everything will be lined up perfectly. Okay? One thing to note is, and you'll get a hang of this the more you use your Stamparatus, but did you notice, and this is especially true on photopolymer stamps, it's not as big an issue on regular stamps. I'm just going to bring my scrap back in here for a second. And what I was going to say is when you stamp this down and it sticks to your cardstock and sometimes it moves. Okay, so what you can do to ensure that you get a good stamping is always make sure everything is flush in that corner, so it's against this edge and this edge all the way. You can use your magnet, but sometimes it will even move with your magnet, and then you can re-stamp and it will line up perfectly. Okay, isn't that awesome? The other thing is you tend to get ink. This is on the inside. You get ink from inking up with your big ink pads, okay? Stampin' Spots are great for this. Now, I don't think you necessarily need to get Stampin' Spots in all the ink colors, though you certainly can if that's what you want to do. But keep in mind that and keep your plates clean. So wipe them off so that you're getting that ink off. Now you can see I've got some black lines on my plates, and that is actually from stuff I've stamped a long time ago. I was cleaning them off, and I actually cleaned most of the ink off, but I didn't do all of it because I wanted to show you that it will come off. I find a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser works really wonderful at cleaning these off. I also use that for my Stampin' Blocks as well. Okay, now we need to finish up this card because we're not actually done yet. So I'm going to set this stuff aside. And we're going to come back to our card, our original card. Now, I did get a total smear right here, which makes me mad, but I'm going to take my little sand eraser and erase away that mark. It's almost gone. You don't want to push hard, just rub at it. By the way, you can find these at fine art stores. It's called a mono sand eraser. And there we go. It's about gone. So that's good. All right. So back to the front of my card. I also have on here this piece right here and these right here. I find whenever you're random stamping, that is where the Stamparatus does not actually shine. It's not intended for random stamping. Okay. So what I want to do to get those beautiful images on my cardstock is I'm going to use a stamp mounted on a block. Okay, so you don't want to stamp randomly with the Stamparatus because that's not, Stamparatus is all about order. This is all about just adding some random images. So I stamped my little grass image twice right here. Okay, that looks good. Then I'm going to take this strip of Whisper white paper, and that's not the strip. Where did I put the strip? Here it is. Because that was the wrong size. Okay, I'm going to take this strip and I'm going to randomly stamp my little palm image. Palm frond, I guess this would be. So I'm going to start by stamping it in Lemon Lime Twist, and I'm kind of stamping it several times just to really fill in that white space. Okay, so that was in Lemon Lime Twist. Next, I'm going to do it in Garden Green. Okay, and I'm overlapping and going in different directions to really kind of build up some color on here. So that looks nice. And last but not least, I'm going to add one more color to really make this rich, and that is Tranquil Tide. I did this combination, oh gosh, last summer, and I just loved it. Okay, so this is the Garden Green is kind of a warm green, and Tranquil Tide is kind of a cool green. Okay, so I'll just stamp like so. Ooh, I kind of like some of that Tranquil Tide stamped off. That's kind of nice. All right, I'm going to take this piece and adhere it to my card. Like so, right up on the edge. That looks wonderful. And then I've got a little scrap of white left over from trimming some cardstock, and I'm going to use this to stamp my sentiment. I will stamp it in black ink, and I wanted a really nice crisp black, so I chose Archival Black. I like to use Memento a lot, but it is not as crisp a color. It's a little softer. Okay, so there's my congratulations. I'm going to set that aside to dry for a second while I finish up the rest of my card. Now, to embellish this, it's really simple. I'm going to use a little bit of black baker's twine. This is wonderful. Sorry, I bumped the camera. This is wonderful for adding just a nice little touch to your card. I didn't want anything too overpowering because I've already got kind of plenty going on with this card, but I just wanted to add a little something to kind of finish it off. And so I will tie this on right here and just tie a nice bow. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do though. That's a good knot. I wanted to tie a bow. I do know the difference. Okay. So I'm going to pull this right up against the border from where my cardstock that I just adhered is. And then I'll tie a cute little bow like so. We'll make the bow pretty. Oh, and look at that. I got some ink on my card. So we're going to get our little sand eraser out. One thing I've noticed with my Stamparatus that I need to be a little bit more careful about is I tend to get a lot of ink on myself. And look, that is disappearing really nicely. So thank goodness for that. Plus we're going to cover part of this up anyway. I have a sweatshirt on today because it's kind of a cold, dreary day. So I can use my sweatshirt to do that, but I don't necessarily recommend it for you. Oh boy. Sorry guys. Okay. Now the last thing I want to do is pop up my sentiment onto my card. So to do that, I'm going to move my inky stamp out of the way, and then we'll pick up some dimensionals here. Ooh, you know what? I do need to punch the end though. So I'm going to take and punch the end with my triple banner punch. If you haven't ever noticed, that's kind of the punch I use the most. I'll just do that. And then we'll pop this up like so onto our card, and then we'll be done. You could certainly add a little clear Wink Stella to this as well. But isn't this a fun card? I really think the best thing you can do is take out a stamp set like this. That's a 2-step set that needs to be lined up, and just practice with it. You're going to mess up to start with, I promise. But once you kind of get a feel for how your Stamparatus works, where the best place to position things are, you are going to have amazing results, and you're going to love how awesome this tool works. I am so excited to have this tool in my stamping arsenal for use, and I think you are going to be so glad you invested in it. Thank you so much for stamping with me today. If you guys have questions, make sure you leave me a comment because I'm happy to answer them, and I will see you soon. Happy stamping, guys. Bye-bye.